Here we go, a good game I've been wanting to play legit for a while, and it's finally the time. Hello everyone, today I'm going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda on the NES. There's quite a bit of things I do want to talk about with this game, and like most games, I make a video about it. I didn't write any notes, so hopefully I managed to cover everything that came to mind as I was playing it, and if I leave out anything, then I'll probably get to it sometime in the future. Or I won't, depending on how things go. You know how it is. Anyways, I had played this game in the past once and finished it, but I had used a guide and save states for the most part. Because as you may or may not know, this game is very cryptic, and for this day and age, ain't nobody got time for that. But it has been some time since I had played it for the first time, so I thought it would be a great idea to play through the game stupid. In other words, no guide. I figured since I can recall a few things, it may be more fair this go around without any guidance whatsoever. Since it has been some time before I had last played it, it still was a challenge to figure out everything on my own, and it definitely took a lot of time to figure out certain things, and I will be talking about those things if I can recall them. As I've said before, I didn't take notes, so let's get started. Oh, I will be talking about spoilers if that even makes any sense for an NES game from eons ago. Spoils, I mean just game things, not story things, because the story is very simple, just a hero trying to save the princess. I figured this game was going to be a challenge, but as long as I was patient with it, it felt rewarding once I managed to figure things out. Unlike my first playthrough, which I sort of played it in a haste because games from this era definitely ruined my sense of patience. There are plenty things to explore with this game. At the start, I managed to recall where the first dungeon was, and that really was the third to last time I was able to remember something from the first playthrough. After that, I was clueless for the most part. This first dungeon was pretty simple to figure out, very fun and easy. It's where you pick up your first two items, the bow and the boomerang. The bow is simple to find, just hidden away in a secret passageway. The boomerang, on the other hand, you gotta defeat one of these motherfuckers and pick it up from them. It's incredibly useful because it's used to stop enemies from moving, so it gives you a chance to attack them. Once you get to the boss, the boomerang ain't gonna do shit, so don't even try it. This is far easier to do if you have full health with the ability to shoot your sword at the dragon, otherwise you gotta approach it and swing at it with the risk of death, but his pattern is quite simple for being the first boss. Once you beat him, you are rewarded with a piece of the Triforce, and at this moment I get a feeling of, hell, this is gonna be a great game. Once I beat the first dungeon, I honestly had no idea where the fuck I had to go, but in doing a little exploration I managed to get the candle, which is a pretty important item, and the recipe from the old lady in the cave, which comes into use later, as with every item you find. I also came across a cave with this lady who said she had some useful info for me if I had paid her, and sure enough I figured, hey, the more I pay her, the better tip, right? Right? Nope, she fucks me over and acts like nothing fucking happened. What the fuck, yo? Eventually I did find the second dungeon, and sure enough made me feel like an idiot. I walked right past it multiple times, but my mind decided to ignore the specific path for whatever reason. But anyways, this is the dungeon where you get to defeat Dodongo. It does require a max amount of bombs in case you fuck it up like I did. Now back to being lost. I managed to find the fairy fountain, and that was great. I ended up using this a lot in the future dungeons to max out my health right before I walked into them. Also, I hesitated, but I ended up paying this different lady for a tip, which I found useless at first because I thought she was talking about the stairs directly next to the cave, which take you to the Master Sword. But apparently the tip was for a later dungeon, but of course I was too stupid to realize. Until I came across the passageway that resets unless you go up like the lady says. Eventually I came across the fifth dungeon, but I decided to ignore it and continue looking for the third dungeon, and I just put a sticky note on that for later. I don't remember the requirement to get the Master Sword, I just came back way later once the enemies started getting way harder for me. I had the same issue with the third dungeon as I did with the second one, where I would just walk right past it and my brain would just decide to ignore the path. but once I found it, it was all good. Those two were really the only dungeons that I had trouble finding. The others were more or less fairly simple, especially since I had remembered them from my previous playthrough. These knights in the game were some of the most annoying enemies to get through. The first time you encounter them, they are of course manageable, but once they introduce the blue versions, and on top of that, they force you to defeat them in order to proceed to the next area, fuck you, dude. What makes them difficult is the fact that you have to attack them from either the side or the back. They are invincible from the front. There are of course methods to be able to deal with every enemy in the game, but goddamn, these assholes were a pain in the ass. Especially since you had to get close to them, which meant they most likely will turn to you and give you some damage. A clever method I learned to deal with them was just dropping bombs in front of them. Another method was just to have full hearts so you can attack them from a distance using your sword, which is a struggle maintaining all your hearts till you encounter one room with these assholes. Another batch of enemies that was a pain was these ghost enemies. They are technically called Wizrobes, but you don't really need to know that they are the most frustrating enemy in the game. Especially when they put you into a limited movement room with a bunch of those swallowing enemy assholes. Eventually, with enough trial and error, you learn to deal with these and other enemies in the game, which is where the patience comes in. The most mind-boggling moment in this game was when I came across this dude which blocked the path forward. There is no indication on what to do or where to go. I spent a long time just going around the outer world till I found something that helped me or gave me any indication of what to do. Earlier, I found this vendor guy that sells meat, which I used to replenish hearts this entire time, and after a long time of just being lost, it hit me. I am a complete and total idiot, yo! All I had to do was feed the guy that very same meat that I have been using. That was probably the most rewarding moment I encountered in the game. I'm not a very smart person, so it took me quite some time to come to the realization that this dude just wanted some food. Anyways, after some more days of playing, I had come across Ganon. Now this is probably the most annoying NES boss in existence, probably just for me since I don't play that many NES games. Now this is the one part where if you know, you know. If you've done a lot of exploring in the outer world, you would have come across the silver arrows, which are necessary for defeating Ganon. Now, if I hadn't known that from my previous playthrough, I would have just ended it all, honestly. It's a pain in the ass to return back to his boss room after constant deaths, and if that wasn't enough, if you don't know that the silver arrows kill him, you'll just constantly end up dying because he randomly teleports around the room and you just gotta constantly swing at nothing and hope you get him. I'm sure there's methods for the teleportation, but the trial and error was too much for me to bear with at this point in the game. Eventually, when you find out the secret to defeating Ganon using the silver arrows, you are ready to walk into the last room and finally save Princess Zelda. There is fire in the way before you actually get to her, which was a weird way to get you killed right before you can even get to Zelda, but whatever. The game ends with Zelda congratulating you for saving Hyrule. It is a very anticlimactic ending for going through all that shit, but that sorta is the thing with these games. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey and the friends we made along the way. Except that wench that stole my money that one time, she can fuck off. What do I think about the game overall? Well, it's definitely a really fun game if you have the patience and imagination to make it work. Throughout my playthrough, it kept reminding me of Breath of the Wild. This basically felt what Breath of the Wild would have been like back in those days, if that makes any sense. I don't know, but I really enjoyed it. Not many people nowadays are particularly interested in playing old-ass games, especially from the NES era, where the graphics aren't up to today's standards, obviously. If you are mildly interested in trying this game out, I do recommend it. There is a lot of exploration and trial and error to get past, but as long as you have a podcast or music on in the background to distract you, it is a fun time. Definitely not for everyone at this point, but like I said, if you are mildly interested in it, go for it. Anyways, that's all I have to say about this game. I appreciate you for taking the time and watching my video to its end. I hope you come back and watch whatever else I put out, or don't, I can't control you. Anyways, peace and have a great rest of your day.